We're not going to overreact to a preseason game, but the drops, the penalties, those are the kinds of mistakes that have plagued the Packers that this team has to eliminate if they want to contend for a Super Bowl.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. It's not worth worrying about right now, the preseason game, because the starters barely played. On the other hand, on offense, you saw the drops that plagued this team last year. And it was, in this case, it's Romeo Doubs, who is not one of the main culprits last year. It was Malik Heath, who is, probably wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, maybe even wide receiver 7 on this team. So not that big a deal. But you saw Zach Tom get beat. Will McDonald's a good player. But one of the big problems for the Packers last year was their best players in the biggest games did not play like their best players. An alternative way of looking at that particular problem is that Green Bay's best players are just not good enough, because the best players are consistently good. It's not just how great are you in a moment or two. It is how good are you consistently. It's sort of the old Ben Hogan, like, it's not how good your great shots are, it's how good your bad shots are. That's really what determines a player's greatness. This team, if it wants to compete in the NFC, has to eliminate the problems that we saw on Saturday night. Now, whether or not those problems are actually indicative of the 2025 team's future problems, that is still to be determined. And I don't want to extrapolate out. I don't want to say, well, because they had the penalties and they had the drops, that means that this team is going to be plagued by that again. I don't want to falsely infer that correlation. That being said, those are the kinds of plays in these big games that have caused the Packers to lose these football games. Green Bay does not have the high-end talent, the kinds of players that can single-handedly turn a game for you, that allow you the leeway, the cushion to make those little mistakes. Unless Jordan Love ascends to that Mahomes, Allen, Jackson tier of quarterbacks, Green Bay does not have the wiggle room for that. This is built as a team of players who are all good, some levels of good, varying flavors of good. No bad players. That's how this team is put together. So you can't make mistakes. You have to be the most sound team. The reason the Lions were really good last year is they have the high-end talent and they don't make mistakes. They are a fundamentally sound team, a team that game plans and executes. It is somewhat similar to that Legion of Boom team where it's like, we're not going to do anything special. We're not going to make any mistakes. You're going to make all the mistakes, and our guys are just going to be better than your guys because we're not going to make mistakes. We're going to let you make your own mistakes. You look at the Brewers right now, what they're doing with the talent that they have. You want to find the blueprint for this Green Bay Packers team. It's this Brewers team. There are just no bad players on this team. And they've turned that into the best team in baseball. This Packers team has the potential to be the best team in the NFL, to be the Super Bowl champions. They have that roster, that coaching staff. this team, the best version of this team, can win a Super Bowl. And I'm not interested in the conversations about Matt LaFleur on the hot seat, dear God, or Brian Gutekunst. And I saw so much of that. And I understand the frustration. I said this on the post-game show, which is we did a bonus episode after the game. We're going to be doing lives on YouTube after all these preseason games, after every game this year. We'll be live on YouTube. For those of you that are new here, welcome. And I said, I understand the frustration with these teams where you just go, okay, yes, they're young, but you can't be the most undisciplined teams consistently year over year over year. This team is not a young team anymore. Yes, there's still plenty of young players technically who are going to have to play, but like the rookies from 2023, they're now going into year 3. You're not a young player anymore. You're a veteran. There are a lot of players from that 2022 draft class. Walker, Wyatt, Dobbs, eventually Christian Watson. Zach Tom just got paid. They're going to be key contributors for this team. Like the average NFL career, these guys are already exceeding that. They are legit veterans now. You can't have these mistakes. Now, one of the things I said about Romeo Dobbs is one-on-one against Sauce Gardner. That's just like, that's the reason he just can't be your number one receiver. I think Romeo Dobbs, in a perfect world, is Juwan Jennings. He's an awesome third option for you who, if your number one receiver is hurt or your number two receiver is hurt, can go out and have a big game here or there, but you're not going to be able to just consistently run offense through him. But third down, red zone, absolute monster for you. That's Juwan Jennings. That's what Romeo Dobbs is in a perfect world for you. Jaden Reed, similar thing. Really nice number 2 receiver. Slot receiver, makes big plays, gadgets, manufactured touches. So that works, okay? You need that number 1. You need Matthew Golden or Dontavian Wicks to ascend to that role. Because these other players, the consistency just isn't there. And so with or without that, like even if Matthew Golden is just a nice, solid player, this team with the coaching staff, with the players on it, is good enough to win, but not the version of the team that doesn't show up in the first quarter of a big game in Minnesota or Detroit, or the team that beats itself with drops, that offensive pass interference. Yes. Was it ticky-tack against the Lions in Detroit? Yes. Was it avoidable? I mean, look, I kind of think it wasn't. The defender was not paying attention. Christian Watson tried to avoid him, and the defender ran right into him. But those are the moments. And this goes back to a point that I've been making all offseason. This is why you need a hierarchy, a real hierarchy. It's why you need to have, okay, Matthew Golden or somebody is going to play 80% of snaps, 75% of snaps. And Jaden Reed is going to be the slot receiver in 11 personnel, period, end of story. Or at least is going to be on the field in 11 personnel, period, end of story. You need Romeo Dobbs to be that guy. You need Tucker Kraft to be the guy who's going to play 80% of snaps. That's what George Kittle is. This hockey line stuff is just not going to work. So this team has to put that stuff behind it. And whether that's the coaches, whether that is the players getting it on themselves to say, we just have to play better. It's probably a collection of those things. That game brought back PTSD for every Packers fan watching, going, these are the reasons in the games the Packers have lost that they have come up short. They do not have the high-end talent to make up for those losses, for those mistakes. And so if they want to contend, those have to be gone. They have to be gone. Now, 2 of the bright spots from Saturday night came at the offensive line. This has been the big question. And here's where I land right now. We've talked about this question a lot. Right now, as we sit here today, mid-August, I no longer really care. This Packers offensive line is deep. It's as deep as any offense in the league. And that's all that matters right now. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Packers. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On Packers are playing Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Fantasy football is Yahoo Fantasy. For me, why would I do anything else? Why would I play anywhere else? I don't. I haven't. I won't. It's just a thing that I care about. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play Yahoo Fantasy football, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new league mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. After Saturday night, where Jordan Morgan, for the first time, to my eyes anyway, looked like an NFL offensive tackle, and Anthony Belton absolutely looked like an NFL offensive tackle, I have now come to the conclusion I no longer care how this shakes out, because I just don't think it matters that much. I don't think the difference is going to be that big regardless of what happens. It is unlikely to me that over the course of the next few weeks, Jordan Morgan looks like Joe Thomas. Just seems unlikely. He was solid to good in the preseason, and that's great, playing a position that he really has not taken any meaningful snaps at in the NFL, preseason or otherwise. He came into this league on this team with the Packers going, he can play anywhere. Practice at right tackle, left guard, right guard. The only thing they didn't do was see if he could snap. And by the way, Sean Ryan, when he played center, was not good, played well at right guard. So this is my point. For the long-term health of this team, yes, I think the best thing is that Jordan Morgan win that right guard job and he becomes your right guard. Part of the reason I believe that is because I think Anthony Belton is an NFL offensive lineman at tackle. I think he's better suited at tackle. I think Jordan Morgan is better suited at guard. But I've come to the conclusion, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Because what the Packers have is right now today the deepest offensive line group in the NFL. Is it the best? I don't know. I don't think so as we stand here today. But as we stand here today, had I recorded this 12 hours ago, I would have told you the Philadelphia Eagles have the best offensive line in the league. Landon Dickerson was carted off on Sunday. That's a big part of what this offense is and can do. All of these offenses are fragile. If I'd asked you 2 months ago, do the Packers have a better offensive line than the Detroit Lions? I would have said no. Then Frank Ragnow retired. That's huge. And now we're getting some more insight into what is going on there, how they're gonna trot this group out. And I have even less faith that the Lions have a better offensive line than the Green Bay Packers. Is Penei Sewell better than any player on the Packers offensive line? Yes. But do the Packers have the best center of either of those two teams now? Pretty unequivocally, I think yes. Do the Packers have the second best tackle? I think Zach Tom is better than Taylor Decker. Is Taylor Decker meaningfully better than Rasheed Walker? Is Jordan Morgan meaningfully worse than Rasheed Walker? Like all of a sudden, this starts to get much closer. And I start to go, I think they're about even. But what the Packers have that the Lions don't have is if Rasheed Walker wins that starting left tackle job, they have two players who can go in and you feel like I'm comfortable with that. If Aaron Banks or Sean Ryan goes down, regardless of who is starting or where, let's say Jordan Morgan wins that left tackle job and you've got Rasheed Walker. Well, what you do if Sean Ryan gets hurt is you play Rasheed Walker, who you know is a good enough left tackle, and you move Jordan Morgan into right guard. Zach Tom gets hurt, you've got Anthony Belton, who look, I know it's one preseason game, but I was higher on him than a lot of people in the pre-draft process. I've been saying from the jump, he's a tackle. The Packers keep saying, look, I think he can play guard. We want to get him comfortable at tackle. To me, they're telling us they think he's a tackle. They want him to play tackle. And I am now of the belief that the most likely scenario for the Packers here is that Zach Tom gets moved to left tackle next year. Because I think Anthony Belton is a tailor-made right tackle. Zach Tom, just from like a trait standpoint, the pass blocking, the size, the feet, the athleticism, he is a prototypical left tackle. And then Jordan Morgan moves to guard. But if that's not how it plays out, I don't think it matters. They have 7 guys. Sean Ryan and Rasheed Walker walk both next offseason. Okay, now they've got 5, and they've got a roster that they can replenish. They've got a draft that they can replenish, and they've been the best draft and develop offensive line team in the league. I mean, I don't mean just like the last 5 years. I mean for the last 25 years. This is just what the Packers have done, who they've been forever. So does it even really matter? And you know, I don't mean to advocate for nihilism here. That's not what we're talking about. And in some ways I feel bad because part of my job is to come up here and we dig into the minutia and we love the machinations. I should have a t-shirt that says Locked On Packers, the number one machinations podcast. I love that word. I love talking about it because the minutia is what gets me excited. It's what gets me excited to dig in every day to the, I mean, I think I watched the number one offense and defenses 4 times. Like that's crazy. That is unhealthy behavior. But I love to dig into it. I love to see what's happening, to figure out how everything works or doesn't work. Yeah, sure, I can say that I do it for you, and I do. But it's just as much for me, for my own edification, for my own knowledge. I want to figure out what's going on for me. And then it's almost a tack-on benefit that I get to do this for you and I get to have this show and we get to do this thing together. That rant is about, you know, understanding that me saying this when I love to dig into those details and I say, the details, I don't know if they matter right now. It's not that the details don't matter. The fact that they have 7 guys, that's the thing. That's the thing that I am stuck on right now. Because the Lions don't. The Eagles don't. Like, you're going to talk about the contenders in the NFL? Teams don't have 7 offensive linemen that they feel good about. And I do think that balances out the fact that Jacob Monk just does not look like he is an NFL player. A great story. By all accounts, a great kid. I was pretty dubious of that pick when it was made. I know that there were a lot of people. I think the excitement from Packers Twitter about this was mostly that he was a center and they freaking hated Josh Myers. It was like, please, someone save us from Josh Myers. I really think copium is overstating it. That's the undiplomatic way of phrasing it, but I think it was wishful thinking. It was wish casting. Please be the next Corey Linsley for the Packers. That was what I thought. I think that was what the hope was for Packer fans. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. Next year doesn't matter. This year is what matters. And this year, the Packers are set up to have the deepest offensive line, to weather the storm with offensive line injuries. And if they have multiple guys get hurt, and all of a sudden you have to play backups to the backups to the backups, well, then every team would be in trouble having to deal with that. Now, this is where, it'd be nice to have that top-end talent. You feel like that might help you a little bit weather the storm, but that's not how offensive line works. Offensive line is a weak link system. You are as good as your worst player. And the Packers are set up to not have to play a worst player. They are set up to, in maybe every single game this season, I'd have to go through one by one and look at it, but I think you can make the case. In every single game this season, the Packers will play a group of 5 where they do not have the worst offensive line starter in the game. And I feel confident saying that weeks 1 through 17. So even if there are injuries, and there are always injuries, if Jordan Morgan doesn't start and he's a backup and has to come in, or Anthony Belton doesn't start and he's a backup and he has to come in, or Sean Ryan doesn't start and he's a backup and he has to come in, I feel confident in saying that those guys, even those guys, will not be the worst starters of the offensive line in that game. That is an incredible place to be. All right, let's talk about this defense, because especially the first team, they took some licks, but I went back and watched it. There is some wonky stuff, but it's I don't want to say it wasn't as bad as you thought because you watched it. I would say it's not what you thought. Or maybe it was. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Packers. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% with their killer last-minute deals. Ever wonder what your view will actually look like before you buy? Well, Gametime shows you panoramic seat views, so there are no surprises. With Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay, no hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price, guaranteed. The easy cope on the first team defense having some issues against the Jets was vanilla, no game plan, throw it up. Well, they weren't vanilla. They didn't really game plan, but they weren't vanilla. There was coverage disguise. There was some wild stuff happening. There were safeties up at the line of scrimmage and then bailing back deep half, deep middle. They were trying to disguise stuff. Now, they didn't bring any exotic pressures, but they did try some things. This felt very experimental from Jeff Hafley. They played some stand-up defensive ends. In fact, they played a number of snaps where their ends were standing up. And maybe this is just born out of, hey, does everyone feel more comfortable now standing up? Lucas Van Ness, you worked to become a stand-up edge rusher. Is that how you feel more comfortable? Rashawn Gary, you spent years in Mike Pettin and Joe Barry's defenses. You spent them standing up. Is that now how you feel more comfortable? Okay, go do it. Traditional three-man big fronts, three true defensive linemen. There were some times when they had Lucas Van Ness play more like a 3-4 defensive end and Isaiah Simmons on the outside. What if that's Edgerrin Cooper? What if that's Quay Walker? They had Warren Brinson, who's playing a 4-eye or true 5-tech. They seem to be just, I wouldn't say they were throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. I think they were trying some new things. I think they were experimenting with this defense. Jeff Hafley understands you got to grow, you got to evolve, you got to manage with your personnel. And so are there ways you can change things up? Can you show different looks? What do these guys look like when they're playing different styles of ball? Warren Brinson is built to be a 5-tech. He's not built to play 3-tech. He's not built to be a nose tackle. He's built to stack and shed blocks, control blocks, get off blocks, not fly around and rush the passer, not explode upfield and penetrate. Although, he did some of that at Georgia. This is closer to what he did at Georgia. Now, you still saw, like Nazir Stackhouse, play the nose, eat blocks, take two, those kinds of things. When I watched the Packers, that first team defense, I did not see a team that was out of position regularly. There was some discussion, in real time, you start to go, oh, could the linebackers get the right depth one time? But I'll give you an example. 3rd and medium. And Justin Fields was able to get to the check down. Well, they ran the tight end and Garrett Wilson through the middle of the field. So what are the linebackers supposed to do? You have to gain depth to get into those passing lanes. When you send two guys through there, you have to be aware of those players. So you have to squeeze those routes somewhat. But the play is designed to get a high-low on those linebackers. If you go low, they go high. This is not a political thing. This is a football thing. So if those linebackers stay up with that check down, it opens up the passing lanes. The safeties are not going to be able to close on there and get there in time. So I have been frustrated at times with the Packers playing the sorts of defenses where teams, especially in like the 2-minute, even with Jeff Hafley, this was problematic at times last year where they just were like, we're just going to keep taking checkdowns, because the Packers are going back up. We're going to rally and tackle. Okay, that works. But on 3rd and 6, if you get 9 yards depth, you have no shot to stop that check down, and teams were taking advantage of it. Now, I will say the Jets were far more ready to win that game. It was far more important to them to win that game, the culture setting, the tone setting. They were throwing real offense out there. Like, they've got a new offensive coordinator coming from, that Detroit tree with Aaron Glenn. They're throwing real stuff where it's like, no, we're trying to scheme something up here. The Packers they're running mirrored slants and like double slants, and there was nothing particularly crazy. The craziest thing that they did was trying to hit a seam ball against cover 2, and like that's cover 2 1-on-1. So there is a difference there. But I think this defense overall, like you look in the trenches, Lucas Van Ness played well. You get kind of a breakout game from Kobe Wooden. Kingsley Enagbare did some nice things. Yeah, did Keyshawn Nixon get turned around and get outrun by Justin Fields? Yeah, Justin Fields outruns a lot of defensive backs. Would I like to see Keyshawn Nixon take a better angle there? Sure, I would. Are the Packers going to play many quarterbacks that have what Justin Fields has as a scrambler? No. Now, it was 3rd and 5. Would I have liked to have seen him get Justin Fields to the sidelines if he's going to do that and pick up the first down but not a touchdown? Sure, that would be my preference. Not an easy thing to do with Justin Fields. They didn't give up anything down the field. It's not like they were getting gashed down the field. The coverage was good down the field. It was check down, and then the one play where the pass rush gets home, Justin Fields escapes, and they create, because Isaiah Simmons needed a map to figure out where he needed to be, or at least that's the way it seemed. I always want to, be careful about drawing these distinctions, but it's just sort of like, okay, well, if everyone else is in certain spots, you kind of can tell who's out of position. Like there was a play, Isaiah McDuffie, flowing one way, the gash Braylon Allen run. It's like, where are you going, sir? Sir, excuse me, sir? You can't park here, sir. I think we're going to see everything you want from this defense. I really do. Especially, I think Xavier McKinney changes what they're able to do, changes the fear factor of this team. And I think once they start actually blitzing, like I think that 3rd and 5 in the red zone, that's probably a spot where you see Jeff Hafley do something. Now, one of the first 3rd downs of the game, he sent a little simulated pressure zone, like old school zone blitz. Lucas Van Ness was in coverage. So they did some weird stuff. They didn't do any overload blitzes. They didn't do zero pressures or anything like that. But I'm not worried about this defense. I don't think those first 2 drives were that big a deal, frankly. I thought the run defense overall was good. And Nate Hobbs, Xavier McKinney, those guys are difference makers. But all the passing game was short game except for the one where Justin Fields steps up and gets the chunk play. Otherwise, it's like there was one play where Edgerrin Cooper just got absolutely mauled. I think that was that check down play. That was a simulated pressure play. And they get what they want. Edgerrin Cooper was going to get home and he gets tackled. I'm not complaining about the officiating. Like, I'm not like, oh, they lost the game because of this Edgerrin Cooper play. No. But like, if you're going to complain about the pass rush, understand there were a couple plays where Packers got absolutely tackled and it wasn't called. For us, all the stuff that they were calling, that was just a weird thing. All right, well, joint practices this week. I would guess we're going to get fewer starters in the game now that there's a joint practice, but we'll see. We'll see what the plan is, and we'll see how this team responds. Matt LaFleur mentioned the Broncos game last year and this team needing to respond. He feels like they will, so I guess we'll see. Follow me on the social medias, Peter_Bukowski on Twitter, on Instagram. Follow me on this channel. Where are we? YouTube. We're wherever you get podcasts. You can find us there. All those places so you can stay Locked On Packers.